Hey, everybody. How are you guys doing tonight? It's good to see all of you. Hey, Mary. How are you? Hi, Michelle. Good to have you here. This topic is right up your alley, my dear. Hey, Pigeon Mac. Hi, John. How are you? It's always good to have you guys here with me. Hey, Louisa. You're very welcome. Thank you for being here. Thank you for everyone who's listening. I appreciate all of you. Hey, wife. How are you? Good to have you here. Hey, Bridget. She says, hi, guys. I'm happy this community is welcoming and thoughtful. I left a comment on another channel where people were accusing the family, and I woke up to the most vile bunch of vitriol from people. Bridget, I'm sorry that you had to experience that, and you're always welcome here. We don't allow that in my channel, so feel free to express yourselves, and we really try to do our best to remain welcoming and thoughtful and have really good conversation without attacking each other personally. Okay. Okay, so yeah, I don't know who's victim blaming, but we don't do that here in this channel, so please do not. You would not want to do that here. Hey, Pam, good to see you. Welcome to all of my moderators, to all of my channel supporters, my members. I so appreciate all of you guys so much, and I'm so glad that you're with us tonight and that you join me behind the crime door where nothing is ever as it seems. Boy, is that the truth in this case. I mean, speaking of Delphi, that is, it's true for Flora as well, but it's really, hey, Danger Dave, how are you? It's good to see you guys. So Michelle is here and John is here, and it looks like things are going to be happening here pretty quickly. We're getting a crowd in here, so I don't want to blabber on. I want to get to the meat of things. But for those of you that were here when I covered the Kiely Rodni case out of California, she's been missing now since last Friday night. She's 16 years old. There has been a lot going on with her case today. I haven't had a chance, and I apologize, to catch up with all of that. And I know there's a lot of YouTubers covering it right now. I plan on doing that tomorrow, and so I will have some updates on her case on Saturday. So I just hope and pray that they find her and that she's safe. The longer she goes missing, the longer or the more it doesn't seem like that might be the case for her. And I really, really hope that they find her. There was also an update this afternoon on the Harmony Montgomery case out of New Hampshire, and they have deemed it a murder, even though they have not found her body. So she was 5 years old when she went missing. I think it was back in 2019, if I'm not mistaken. And it's just a sad day for the family. I really, my heart goes out to her family, to Harmony's family. So I did want to give everybody those heads up. Hey, Digital, it's so good to have you here, and just give you those quick updates. We've got a lot to get to tonight. I'm going to talk about a couple of things. For those of you that aren't aware, there's quite a bit of cases that I'm kind of watching and covering, and I think you guys know. Kristen Smart's case is still going on, going strong. It's going to be for a few months. And I'm going to have updates on her as well, and where we are in that trial with Paul Flores and his father, Ruben, on Saturday night. And I also am going to update us on what happened today in the Scott Peterson case, where that's been going on for months. And today were the final arguments on whether or not he should get a new trial. So there was a lot to unpack in that. I watched a lot of the live coverage this afternoon on that. I followed that case from the very beginning, and I'm one of the few people that do believe that he deserves a new trial. So I'm sure I'm going to get a ton of flack for that, but I do believe so. I believe that there was juror misconduct, and that based on our laws and the way things work, he deserves to have a new trial. So with that being said, I will update some of that stuff on Saturday night as well. And I think that was all of the stuff I wanted to talk to about that. Let's see. Hey, Vanessa Marie, how are you? So thank you, Michelle. I'm glad that you agree with me. I know that I am amongst the minority when it comes to that. There's a lot about Scott Peterson's case that I just don't agree with. He was absolutely tried in the court of public opinion before he ever got his case before a jury. And I just feel that that is not how our judicial system is supposed to work in this country. And I felt almost like it was a witch hunt. And sadly, just because you are an adulterer doesn't make you a murderer. So I just think that there's a lot of things wrong with that case. So I'm hoping that he gets a break and does get a chance to have another trial, and hopefully it'll be better run. So anyway, with that being said, let's get into the topics tonight. I want to say this, the topic that I found was through a Redditor, a person on Reddit who posted about this. And they posted a link, and I went and I read up on a whole bunch of stuff with the Department of Justice and the FBI on this topic. And it's really eye-opening and really important. And I thought, I mean, I've covered the crime scene before, but not specifically violent crime scene. And I really thought that this was important for us to talk about. So let me get my stuff together here so that I have it all in front of me. How are you guys doing? Have you guys had a good week so far? We're almost to the weekend. And I'm like, I know that everybody who's out there working every day hard, they look forward to. I remember the days of working 12-hour shifts and absolutely couldn't wait to get off my feet and have time off. And so I'm glad I don't have to do any of that anymore. So the topic that I chose tonight. Hey, AJ, how are you? I am so, so happy to see you. I missed you. Oh, I can't wait. I'm glad that you're listening though. Much love to you. Hey guys, I've missed AJ. She's not been around. She's been so busy. How are things down under in Australia? I hope everything's good for you. AJ is one of my beautiful moderators, you guys. She's amazing. I really, really appreciate her. Oh, Michelle, you're on call? That's terrible. So you're just waiting to get called out to a crime scene. That's just not fun. Okay, so we're going to talk about violent crime scenes and violent crime scene analysis and modus operandi, the signature and staging. And where this is being pulled from is from an article that was written by John Douglas. And I think that everybody knows who John Douglas is, but if not, I'm going to refresh your memory. John Douglas is the man who started the behavioral science unit at the FBI in Quantico back in the 70s. And John Douglas is well known for, he's the first one who really started profiling the behaviors of serial killers. And he started this and started looking at some of the most violent offenders ever known that we had out there. And he's done some amazing work, you guys. I really highly suggest the source for this is down in the description box below my live stream. So if you want to go check this out, please be sure that you look at this. But he wrote back in 1992, he wrote a bulletin to the FBI and talked about this very topic. And he wrote this with another person in the FBI named Corinne Munn. So we're just going to go over some of the things that he talks about. And one of the things that I found compelling was he tells us that most crime scenes tell us a story. And I think that Robert Ives tells us that about Delphi, because Robert Ives told us how unusual the crime scene was. He told us that it was so unusual based on what you would normally find at a crime scene that you would actually want to photograph how unusual it was. And for me, I'm thinking to myself, as a person who doesn't investigate crime scenes or do any of that, why in the world would you want to take a photograph of a crime scene? I mean, I know that they have to for law enforcement purposes, but yeah, I'm like, why would you want to take a photograph? So there had to have been something that caught his eye and made him say that. Now, I will say this. I've been covering this case since day one. I've followed this case. I've covered it. There's not much out there that I haven't seen about the case when it comes to interviews, media accounts. I have, I think, close to 400 videos on my my YouTube, what do they call that? Playlist for Delphi, with all different kinds of videos and interviews. And I have never been able to find where Robert Ives said non-secular. I've never seen it in a video, never heard him say it, and I've never seen it written anywhere. Now, if he said that and it was taken, it was off the record and it was put out there, I don't know. I'm definitely not going to say that for sure he didn't say it. I'm just saying I've never been able to confirm it or find any evidence anywhere. And there is an absolute huge mantra around this case that there is something, or there was something non-secular about the crime scene. And that is huge if that's true. And like most stories, crime scenes have characteristics. They have a plot, they have a beginning, a middle, and hopefully a conclusion. Hey, Digital, I've got, I'm right up to about 15 now. I have actually about 15 notebooks on the case. I know, I'm crazy. However, in contrast to authors who lead their readers to a predetermined ending or conclusion, the final disposition of a crime scene depends on the investigators who are assigned to the case. The investigators' ability to analyze a crime scene and to determine the who, what, how, and why govern how the crime scene story unfolds. And John told us to ensure a satisfactory ending, that is, the apprehension and prosecution of the violent crime offender. Investigators must realize that the outcome depends on their insights into the dynamic of human behavior, speech patterns, writing styles, verbal and nonverbal gestures. Other traits and patterns give shape to human behavior. And these individual characteristics work in concert to cause each person, each one of us, to act and to react and function differently. And we perform in unique and specific ways, each one of us. And this is called individualistic behavior. And it usually remains consistent regardless of whatever the activity is that's being performed. Since the commission of violent crime involves all the dynamics of normal human behavior, learning to recognize crime scene manifestations of behavioral patterns enables the investigators to discover much, much more about these offenders. And it also provides a means by which investigators can distinguish between different offenders committing the same types of offenses. Welcome to everyone coming in. Thank you so much for being here. Hey, CJK. So good to have you here. Hey, Lori Clayton. Thank you for joining. There are 3 possible manifestations of offender behavior at a crime scene: the modus operandi, or the MO, the personation or signature, and staging. And John wrote an article about these manifestations in order to demonstrate to the FBI and to help with training the importance of analyzing a crime scene in terms of human behavior, and was hopeful that other law enforcement agencies would also read this and also would help them with their own training within their own jurisdictions. Hey, Sharon. Good to see you. So in 1989, Nathaniel Code Jr. was a Shreveport, Louisiana man who was convicted of murder. And the jury determined that on 3 separate occasions between 1984 and 1987 that Code murdered a total of 8 people. Now, the jury returned a guilty verdict, even though several disparities existed among the 3 crime scenes. For example, the offender gagged the first victim with a piece of material obtained at the crime scene, but brought duct tape to use on the other 7 victims in the other 2 incidents. Now, also the killer stabbed and slashed their first victim, whereas the victims of the other 2 crimes were also shot and showed signs of ligature strangulation. The victims ranged in the age from 8 years of age to 74 years of age. And they included both sexes. However, they were all Black. And the offender took money from one crime scene, but not the other 2. Considering the evidence found at the 3 crime scenes, could one man be linked to all of these murders? Wouldn't such differences in modus operandi, which is the offender's actions while committing the crime, and victimology, characteristics of the victims, eliminate the connection to one offender? Well, John says when attempting to link cases, the MO has great significance. We've heard this from Perry Freeman, our good friend CopFacts. He's told us how important MO is. It's a critical step in crime scene analysis. And it's the resulting correlation that connects cases due to similarities in MO. But we have to ask ourselves what causes an offender to use a certain MO and what circumstances shape that MO. Is the MO static or is it dynamic? And unfortunately, investigators make a serious error by placing too much significance on the MO when linking crimes. For example, John says a novice burglar shatters a locked basement window to gain access to a house. Fearing that the sound of window breaking will attract attention, he rushes in his search for valuables. Later, during subsequent crimes, he brings tools to force open locks, which will minimize the noise. And this allows him more time to commit the crimes and to obtain more profitable haul. Hey, Unsolved, how are you? Good to have you. So good to have you. So as shown, the burglar refined his breaking and entering technique to lower his risk of apprehension and to increase profits. And this demonstrates that the MO is a learned behavior that is dynamic and malleable. And it's developed over time. And the MO continuously evolves as offenders gain experience and confidence. And I think that this is extremely important in both Delphi and Flora, that we remember this when we're talking about MO. Incarceration usually impacts on the future MOs of offenders, and especially career criminals. Offenders refine their MOs as they learn from the mistakes that led to them becoming arrested. They learn from other crime offenders while they're in jail. They talk. Criminals talk to each other. They figure out what they may or may not have done right or wrong, or they listen, you know. The victim's response also significantly influences the evolution of the MO. If a rapist has problems controlling his victim, he will modify the MO to accommodate resistance. He may use duct tape, other ligatures, or a weapon on the victim. Hey, Miss Thang, how are you? I'm glad you're here. Hey, Grizz, how are you? So good to see you, my friend. Everybody, welcome Grismatically. He's one of my mods. I'm so glad he made it. Or he may blitz the victim and immediately incapacitate her. If such measures are ineffective, he may resort to greater violence, or he may end up killing his victim. Thus, offenders continually are reshaping their MO to meet the demands of the crime. And in the case of Nathaniel Code, the MO and victimology alone would have failed to link him to each of those 8 murders. But Code left more than gags, duct tape, and bodies with gunshot wounds and slashed throats at the crime scene. He also left his calling card. Investigators found this calling card or signature aspect at every single crime scene, and thus they were able to link Code to the crimes. The signature aspect of crimes and of violent crimes shows that the repetitive offender often exhibits another element of criminal behavior during the crime. The signature aspect, or the calling card, so to speak, is criminal conduct that is unique and an integral part of the offender's behavior and goes beyond the actions needed to commit the crime. And fantasies of offenders often give birth to violent crime. And as offenders brood and daydream over these fantasies and thoughts, they develop a need to express these violent fantasies. And when they are finally acted out, some aspect of each of their crimes demonstrates a unique and personal expression or a ritual-based expression on these fantasies. However, committing the crime does not satisfy the needs of the offenders, and this insufficiency compels them to go beyond the scope of the offense and perform some sort of a ritual. When offenders display rituals at crime scenes, they have left their individualized calling card. And John goes on to tell us, how do crime scenes manifest this calling card or signature aspect? Basically, crime scenes reveal peculiar characteristics or unusual offender input that occur while the crime is being committed. And you know what? John Douglas said that, and Robert Ives almost repeated it word for word. He said that there were peculiar things and unusual things about this crime scene, and something they had never seen before. So, I mean, it's just crazy to me that he said that. For example, a rapist demonstrates his signature by engaging in acts of domination, manipulation, or control during the verbal, physical, or sexual phase of his crime. And the use of exceptionally vulgar or abusive language, or preparing a script for the victim to repeat, represents a verbal signature. When the rapist prepares a script for a victim, he dictates a particular verbal response from her, such as, "Tell me how much you enjoy sex with me," or "Tell me how good I am." The use of excessive physical force shows another aspect of a subject's signature. One example of signature sexual behavior involves seeing the offender who repeatedly engages in a specific order of sexual activity with different victims. And the signature aspect remains a constant, and it's an enduring part of each of these offenders. And unlike the MO, John says it never changes. However, signature aspects may evolve over time, such as in the case of a lust murderer who performs greater post-mortem mutilation as he progresses from crime to crime. Elements of the original ritual becomes more fully developed, and in addition, the signature does not always show up at every crime. Because of unexpected contingencies, such as interpretations or interruptions, or an unexpected victim response. We all have said when we were talking about Delphi that something happened, that some of us feel that something happened that caused the perpetrator in the Delphi murders to act in a different manner. He had something planned in his mind, in his head, in his fantasies that day, and something happened that triggered him that didn't go along with his plan. Either something was thwarted or whatever, but something happened that I think was an unexpected victim response. And to me, that unexpected victim response was the girls um, standing up to him in some fashion. Now, I know that we've been told by law enforcement that there was no sign of a struggle, but that doesn't mean that the girls didn't stand up to him in some fashion. I just think that what he planned, for whatever reason, there was some kind of something, an interruption, an unexpected response. Something happened that he didn't expect that changed the scope of everything that happened that day. The investigator may not always be able to identify signatures or signature aspects. Violent offenses often involve high-risk victims or a decomposing body. While this complicates recognizing the signature aspects of an offender when you have those. And John goes on to tell us about the modus operandi or signature aspect. How do you tell? The following scenarios are fictitious accounts, and they're used to show the difference between MO and a signature. Now, I think this is extremely important because this has been spouted so much over the internet and social media for 5.5 years about these signatures that are supposedly left at the Delphi crime scene. And I think we need to understand the difference between MO and the signature aspect of a crime scene. And until we understand the differences, it's very easy to misinterpret what is happening there. So here's a reference that John gave us. A rapist enters a residence and takes a woman and her husband captive. The offender orders the husband to lie face down on the floor and then places a cup and saucer on his back. And he tells the husband, "If I hear the cup move or hit the floor, your wife dies." The offender then takes the wife into the next room and rapes her. In another situation, a rapist enters the house, orders the woman to phone her husband, and tells her to use some ploy to get him to come home. Once the husband arrives, the rapist ties him to a chair and forces him to watch the assault on his wife. The rapist who used the cup and the saucer developed an effective modus operandi to control the husband. However, the other rapist went beyond just committing the rape. He satisfied his fantasy fully by not only raping the wife, but also by humiliating and dominating the husband. His personal needs compelled him to perform this signature aspect of the crime. Now, in Michigan, a bank robber makes the bank tellers undress during the robbery. In Texas, another bank robber also forces the tellers to undress, but he also makes them pose in sexually provocative positions as he takes photographs. Do both of these crimes demonstrate a signature aspect, you guys? What do you think by what we've just learned? The Michigan robber used a very effective means to increase his escape time, causing the tellers to dress before they called the police. When interviewed, they offered vague and meager descriptions because their embarrassment prevented them from having eye contact with the robber. And this offender developed a very clever MO. However, the Texas robber went beyond the required action to commit his crime successfully. He felt compelled to act and to enact that ritual of requiring the tellers to pose so that he could snap photographs. He left his signature on the crime, and the act of robbing the bank itself did not gratify his psychosexual needs. So that's the difference between MO and a signature. Now, when John tells us that when attempting to link cases, and I think this is really important because there's a large audience out there that doesn't want us to try to link any of these cases that we've talked about. When attempting to link cases, the MO plays an important role. And however, as stated previously, the MO should not be the only criteria used to connect crimes, especially with with repeat offenders who alter their MOs through experience and learning. Usually, first offenses differ considerably from subsequent offenses. However, the signature aspect stays the same whether it's the first offense or one committed 10 years later. The ritual may evolve, but the theme remains constant. And the signature aspect should receive greater consideration than victim similarities, although these should never be discounted when attempting to link cases to a serial offender. Physical similarities of victims are often not important, especially when linking crimes motivated by anger. The offender expresses anger through the rituals, not by attacking a victim who possesses a certain characteristic or a trait. So, what are cases that can be linked by offender signature? Well, there was Ronnie Shelton, a serial rapist. He committed as many as 50 rapes, and when convicted of 28 of them, he received a prison sentence in excess of 1,000 years. Both his verbal communication and sexual assaults manifested his signature. Verbally, Shelton was exceptionally degrading and exceptionally vulgar. In addition, he would make such comments as, "I have seen you with your boyfriend, I've seen you around," or "you know who I am." Thoughts of Shelton lurking around their neighborhoods terrorized his victims. However, it was the sexual assault itself that occupied the central position in Shelton's ritual. He would rape his victims vaginally and then withdraw and ejaculate on their stomachs or breasts. Shelton would also frequently masturbate over the victims or between their breasts or force them to masturbate him manually. And then he would use their clothing to wipe this off. He also forced many of his victims to have oral sex with him. And the combination of all of these acts were Shelton's signature. His MO consisted of entering the victim's dwelling through a window or a patio entrance that faced a wooded area or bushes, offering his concealment. He wore a ski mask, a stocking, or a scarf, and he convinced the victim that he was not there to rape but to rob them. However, when he had the victim, when he would return, when he had the victim under his control, he would return to the rape mode, and the victim would comply because she had seen his propensity for violence by his earlier actions, and such as throwing her on the floor or holding a knife to her throat. And in addition, Shelton would say to his victims, "Keep your eyes down, cover your eyes, don't look at me. I won't kill you or hurt your kids." Before he left, he would verbally intimidate them and give them such warnings as, "Don't call the police or I'll come back and kill you." And these characteristics served as Shelton's MO, whereas his former actions were his signature that ended up linking him to 28 sexual assaults. And Nathaniel Code, who John had spoken about earlier, had killed 8 times on 3 separate occasions. And the first homicide was a 25-year-old black female that happened in August of 1984. And Code stabbed her 9 times in the chest and slashed her throat. A year later, he killed 4 people, a 15-year-old girl, her mother, and 2 of their male friends. He nearly severed the girl's head from her body. He asphyxiated the mother and draped her body over the side of a bathtub. He then shot one of the males in the head, leaving him in a middle bedroom, and the other male, who was found in the front bedroom, was shot twice and his throat was slit. The last killing took place on August 5th of 1987, and the victims were his grandfather and his 8-year-old and 12-year-old nephews. The boys died of ligature strangulation. Code stabbed his grandfather 5 times in the chest and 7 times in the back. The changes in Code's MO exhibited from case to case show how the MO is refined. And for example, in the first murder, Code gagged the victim with material found at the scene, and the next time he brought duct tape. Code also kept his victims under surveillance to obtain information on them, especially with the second killings. In that case, he brought a gun to the scene to dispose of the males who posed the greatest threat to him. Since the last victims, an elderly man and 2 children, posed little threat, Code did not use a gun on them. And all 8 killings occurred in single-family dwellings. In each dwelling, the air conditioners and or televisions were on, which drowned out noise as he entered through a door or a window. He quickly gained and maintained control of the victims by separating them in different rooms. Nathaniel Code had a very distinctive calling card or signature, one aspect which were the injuries inflicted on the victims. He employed a very bloody method of attack and overkill. And I think that we can pretty much assume by what was put out in the FBI's affidavit for Ron Logan that this crime scene in Delphi was also bloody and overkill. He could have simply murdered each victim with a single gunshot wound, a clean killing involving a very little mess. Instead, he slaughtered his victims by slashing their throats with a sawing motion that resulted in very deep wounds. Although brutal, the attack didn't satisfy his ritual. All victims sustained additional injuries, with the exception of the 15-year-old girl. One male victim suffered gunshot wounds to the chest, while another received multiple stab wounds to the chest. And Code wounded nearly all the victims far beyond what was necessary to cause their death. The physical violence and bloody overkill satisfied Code's need for domination, control, and manipulation. And if you remember, Doug Carter talks to us in April of 2019 press conference and tells us, we know this is about control to you. This offender needs to dominate, control, and manipulate. He positioned each victim face down, which supports this theory. Code even forced the mother to witness her daughter's death as part of the ritual of control, which was formed from his rage. In fact, forensic tests found that the daughter's blood on the mother's dress, if the victim's response threatened his sense of domination, Code reacted with very much rage and anger and the excessive violence that led to overkill. The last signature aspect of Code's crime probably best illustrates his unique calling card, the ligatures. Code used both a usual and unusual configuration and material. In all three cases, he bound his victims with electrical, appliance, or telephone cords acquired at the scene. Code could have brought rope or used his duct tape, but the use of these cords satisfied some personal need. Using a handcuff-style configuration, he looped the cord around each wrist and then the ankles, connecting them to the wrists by a lead going through the legs. The dissimilarities of these cases involves the MO, not the signature aspect, and the use of a gun with threatening males present reveals an adaptive offender who's able to adapt to what's happening around him. At the time of his grandfather's homicide, additional financial stressors affected Code, evidenced by the theft of money from his grandfather's residence. And these financial stressors influenced Code's MO, not his calling card or his signature. Physical characteristics, age, and even sex do not enhance or diminish the ritual driven by rage. And Code's ritual of anger required control and domination of his victims. So victimology was not as important. And Code, like Ronnie Shelton, the serial rapist, selected victims that he could control, manipulate, and on whom he could project his anger. I think that that's extremely important for people to understand, that a lot of times these offenders, they have to have victims that they know they can control. And who wouldn't think they could control two teenage girls, right? Now, one of the things that John says about the importance of offender's signature is understanding and recognizing the signature aspects is vital in the apprehension and prosecution of an offender. And this is especially a serial offender. So if we are looking at a serial offender in Delphi, which a lot of people think we are, no one appreciates the importance of recognizing an offender's calling card more than David Vasquez. In 1984, Vasquez pled guilty to the murder of a 34-year-old Arlington, Virginia woman, and the woman had been sexually assaulted and died of ligature strangulation. The killer left her lying face down with her hands tied behind her back, and he used unique knots and excessive binding with the ligatures and a lead coming from the wrists to the neck and over the left shoulder. The body was openly displayed so that discovery offered significant shock value. The offender spent considerable time at the crime scene. He made extensive preparations to bind the victim, allowing him to control her easily. His needs dictated that he move her around the house, exerting total domination over her. It appeared that he even took her into the bathroom and made her brush her teeth. None of this behavior was necessary to perpetrate the crime. The offender felt compelled to act out this ritual. And Vasquez had a borderline IQ, believing this would make it difficult to prove his innocence. His lawyers convinced him that he would probably receive the death penalty if the case went to trial. Instead, Vasquez opted for life in prison by pleading guilty. 3 years later, in 1987, police discovered a 44-year-old woman lying nude and face down on her bed, and a rope bound her wrists behind her back, and a ligature strand tightly encircled her neck with a slip knot at the back. It continued over her left shoulder, down her back, and then was wrapped 3 times around each wrist. Forensics revealed that she had died of ligature strangulation and that she had been sexually assaulted. The offender left the body exposed and openly displayed. He appeared to have spent a considerable amount of time at the crime scene, and this homicide occurred 4 blocks from the 1984 murder. David Vasquez had been in prison 3 years when the 1987 murder occurred. And at the request of the Arlington, Virginia Police Department, the National Center for the Analysis of Violent Crime, or NCAVAC, conducted an extensive analysis of these 2 murders and a series of sexual assaults and several other killings that occurred between 1984 and 1987. Eventually, NCAVAC linked these offenses through analogs, signature aspects of another local suspect. Physical evidence later corroborated this connection and determined that the calling card or signature left in the 1984 homicide did not belong to David Vasquez. And as a result of this finding, the Commonwealth of Virginia released Vasquez from prison and exonerated him from the crime. When investigators approach a crime scene, they should look for behavioral clues left by the offender. Now, we know in Delphi that there were a lot of people at that crime scene. We know that Robert Ives came. We know we had Tobe Levenby out there. There were a lot of sheriff deputies. We had the FBI. We had Doug Carter showed up in the afternoon at some point. We had Holman, a lot of different detectives with the ISP, investigators with the ISP. And so there was a lot of people viewing that crime scene out there in the woods that day. And some of these guys were trained on what John Douglas is talking about with us, and some were not. And this is when investigators are supposed to attempt to find answers to several critical questions. How did the encounter between the offender and the victim occur? And did the offender blitz or ambush the victim? Or did he use verbal means, the con, to capture them? And I think we know, or we've been told by law enforcement, that he didn't ambush them. He used some verbal means or con to capture them or to force them down the hill. Did the offender use ligatures to control the victims? We don't know. What was the sequence of events? We don't know. Was the victim sexually assaulted before or after their death? We don't know. When did the mutilation take place? Before or after death? We don't know, and we don't know if there was. Did the offender place any item at the crime scene or remove something from the crime scene? We don't know if he placed anything, but we do know he took something because we learned that in the Ron Logan affidavit. As investigators analyze these crime scenes, facts may arise that baffle them. And I'm sure that was the case in Delphi. I'm sure that was the case in Flora. That they looked at this crime scene and they were baffled by some of the stuff. Granted, these are two different types of cases. We have arson and we have double homicide. But these details may contain I hate this word, peculiarities that serve no apparent purpose in the perpetration of the crime and obscure the underlying motive of the crime. And the confusion may result of a crime scene behavior called staging. Now, staging occurs when someone purposely alters the crime scene prior to the arrival of the police. And I believe that the Delphi crime scene was staged. And there's a reason. John tells us there's reasons for crime scene staging. Principally, staging takes place for two reasons: to direct the investigation away from the most logical suspect, or to protect the victim or the victim's family. It is the offender who attempts to redirect the investigation. This offender does not just happen to come upon a victim, but is someone who almost always has some kind of association or relationship with the victim. This person, when in contact with law enforcement, will attempt to steer the investigation away from himself, usually by overly being cooperative or extremely distraught. Therefore, investigators should never eliminate a suspect who blatantly displays such distinctive behaviors. The second reason for staging, to protect the victim or the victim's family, occurs for the most part in rape murder. In rape murder crimes or autoerotic fatalities. This type of staging is performed by the family member or person who finds the body. Since perpetrators of such crimes leave their victims in degrading positions, those who find the bodies attempt to restore some dignity to the victim. For example, a husband may redress or cover his wife's body, or in the case of an autoerotic fatality, a wife may cut the noose or the device suspending the body of her husband. Basically, these people are trying to prevent future shock that may be brought about by the position, the dress, or condition of the victim. And in addition, they will often stage an autoerotic fatality to look like a suicide, perhaps even writing a suicide note. They may even go so far as to make it appear to be a homicide. For both types of crime scene investigations, rape murders and autoerotic fatalities, investigators need to obtain an accurate description of the body's condition when found and to determine exactly what the person who found the body did to alter the crime scene. Scrutiny of forensic findings, crime scene and dynamics, and victimology will probably reveal the true circumstance surrounding the deaths. And finally, at some crime scenes, investigators must discern if the scene is truly disorganized or if the offender staged it to appear careless and haphazard. This determination not only helps to direct the analysis to the underlying motive, but also help to shape the offender's profile. However, recognition of staging, especially with a shrewd offender, can be very difficult, and investigators must examine all factors of the crime if they suspect it has been staged. This is when forensics, victimology, and minute crime scene details become critical to determine if staging has occurred. Now, John also tells us that there are many red flags, many red flags Offenders who stage crime scenes usually make mistakes because they arrange the scene to resemble what they believe it should look like. And in so doing, offenders experience a great deal of stress. They do not have the time to fit all the pieces together logically. And as a result, inconsistencies in forensic findings and in the overall big picture of the crime scene will begin to appear. And these inconsistencies can serve as red flags of staging, which serve to prevent investigators or investigations from becoming misguided. So, to ensure that this doesn't happen, investigators need to scrutinize all crime scene indicators individually and then view them in context with the total picture. Crime scene indicators include all evidence of offender activity, the method of entry of the offender-victim interactions, and body disposition. When exploring these issues, investigators should consider several factors. For example, if burglary appears to be the motive, did the offender take appropriate items from the crime scene? In one case submitted to the National Center for the Analysis of Violent Crime, a man returning home from work interrupted a burglary in progress. The startled burglar killed him as he attempted to flee, but an inventory of the crime scene determined that the offender did not steal anything, although it did appear that they started to disassemble a large stereo and TV unit. Further examination of the crime scene revealed that they left smaller and easily transported items of far greater value, jewelry, coin collections, and the police subsequently determined that the victim's wife had paid the burglars to stage the crime and kill her husband. She, in fact, was having an affair with one of the suspects. Another factor is to consider is the point of entry. Did the point of entry make sense? Did the offender enter the house through a second-story window, even though there was a rear door that was easier and less conspicuous than going through a second-story window? Why did the offender increase his chance of being seen by potential witnesses who might alert authorities? And bingo, that is one of the biggest questions that I have about Bridge Guy. There has been so much talk about the fact that Bridge Guy showed up that day around noon or whatever and was seen by a 16-year-old girl by the Freedom Bridge. And my whole thought process on this is why? Why would this offender increase his chance of being seen by a potential witness who might alert authorities to him? Investigators should also consider whether the offender put himself at high risk by committing the crime during the daylight hours in a populated area. Well, if the crime scene is in a place of residence, they should also evaluate any obvious signs of occupancy, such as lights on in the house, vehicles in the driveway. Our perpetrator in the Delphi homicides committed this crime in the daylight hours, in fact, in broad daylight hours, the middle of the afternoon, on a very sunny, bright day, with people all around. According to witnesses, if we are led to believe, hey Tech Death, how are you, hun? If we are to believe what we are hearing, there were people on the trail. It wasn't this desolate place. Some of the things that red flags that investigators should be looking at crime scenes are on one Saturday morning in a small northeastern city, an unknown intruder attacked a man and his wife. By placing a ladder against the house, the suspect made it appear that he had climbed to a second-story window, removed the screen, and entered the house. All this occurred in a residential area during a time when neighbors were doing their weekend chores and errands. The husband claimed that he heard noises downstairs, so he went with a gun to investigate. A struggle occurred with the intruder, during which the husband was left unconscious by a blow to his head. Presumably, the intruder then went upstairs and killed the wife by manual strangulation. He left the body with a nightgown pulled up around the victim's waist, implying that he sexually assaulted her, and the couple's 5-year-old daughter remained unharmed, asleep in the next room. While processing the crime scene, detectives noted that the ladder made no impression in the moist soil near the house, although it did when they tried to climb the ladder. Also, the intruder positioned the ladder with the rungs facing away from the house, and many of the rungs on the wooden ladder had rotted, making it impossible to support anyone over the weight of 50 pounds. In addition, the crime scene raised questions that could not be answered logically. Why didn't the offender choose to enter the residence through a first-story window to decrease the possibility of detection? Why did the offender want to burglarize the residence on a Saturday morning when everyone would be around and would be able to take a chance of seeing him? Why did the intruder choose a residence that was obviously occupied? Most offenders don't do that. There were several vehicles in the driveway. Inside the residence, other inconsistencies became apparent. For example, if the intent was murder, the intruder did not seek his victim immediately, but went downstairs first. He also did not come equipped to kill because, according to the one witness, the husband, he never displayed a weapon. Also, the person posing the most threat, the husband, received only minor injuries. So by analyzing the crime scene, which revealed excessive offender activity, it became apparent that there was no clear motive for this crime. Therefore, based on the numerous inconsistencies found at the crime scene, Nikovac Criminal Investigative Analysis concluded that the husband staged the homicide to make it appear to be the work of an intruder, and he was eventually convicted of his wife's murder. Forensic red flags are results that don't fit the crime, should also cause investigators to consider staging. Personal assaults should raise suspicion, especially if material gain appears to be the initial motive. These assaults could include the use of a weapon of opportunity, manual or ligature strangulation, facial beating, they call that depersonalization, and excessive trauma beyond the necessary trauma to cause a death, or in other words, overkill. Hey, Jennifer, good to see you. In other words, do the injuries fit the crime? Sexual and domestic homicides usually demonstrate forensic findings of a close-range personal assault. The victim, not money or property, is the primary focus of the offender. However, this type of offender will often attempt to stage a sexual or domestic homicide that appears to be motivated by personal gain. This does not imply that the personal assaults never happen while a property crime is being committed, but usually these offenders prefer quick, clean kills that reduce the time spent at the crime scene. And I think from what we know, that is exactly what Bridge Guy was. He wanted quick, clean, get me out of here, get me out of Dodge. Forensic red flags are also raised when there are discrepancies between witness and survivor accounts and forensic results. For example, in one case, an estranged wife found her husband in the tub with the water running, and initially it appeared as if he had slipped, and struck his head on a bathroom fixture, which resulted in his death. However, his death by drowning. However, the toxicology reports had a different finding. From those reports showed a high level of Valium in the victim's blood. Also, the autopsy revealed several concentrated areas of injury or impact points on the head, as if the victim had struck his head more than once. Subsequently, investigators learned that the wife had been with the victim on the evening of his death, and she later confessed that she laced his dinner salad with Valium, and when he passed out, she let 3 men into the home. And these men had been hired by the wife to kill the victim and to make it look like an accident. And often investigators will find forensic discrepancies when an offender stages a rape murder that is positioning the body to infer a sexual assault. And if the offender has a close relationship with the victim, he will only partially remove the victim's clothing, never leaving her completely nude. However, despite the position of the body and the removal of some of the victim's clothes, an autopsy can confirm or deny whether an actual sexual assault took place, so thereby determining if the crime scene was staged. If investigators suspect a crime has been staged, they should look for signs of association between the offender and the victim, or, as is frequently the case with domestic violence, the involvement of a third party who is usually the one who discovers the victim. For example, in the case involving the husband who staged his wife's murder to make it look like the crime was committed by an intruder, the husband did not immediately check on his wife and daughter once he regained consciousness. Instead, he remained downstairs and called his brother, who went upstairs and discovered the victim. Offenders will often manipulate the discovery of victims by a neighbor or a family member, or conveniently be elsewhere when the victim is discovered. So John's conclusion is that violent crime scenes require investigators to be diagnosticians. They must be able to analyze a crime scene for the messages that are being emitted, and they need to understand these dynamics of human behavior displayed at crime scenes. Investigators must also be able to recognize the different manifestations of behavior so they can ask the right questions to get the valid answers they need. And by approaching each crime scene with an awareness of these factors, investigators can steadily improve their ability to read the story, the true story of each violent crime scene that they encounter. And by doing so, they will become more knowledgeable and better equipped to apprehend the violent crime offender. I think that this was so well written, this bulletin from 1992. And I think that John Douglas really provides us with a lot of information as to how we should be looking at some of these crime scenes. I hope you guys got something out of all of that, because I realize it's a lot of information and it's hard to sometimes listen to all of that forensic kind of talk, but I think it helps us to understand a little bit more of what could be going on in crime scenes. And just because we think we know, and we've talked about this before, what we think we know may not be the truth. And the truth will be uncovered because the crime scene speaks the truth, right? That's, I think, what we're being told here by John Douglas, is that it tells us that crime scenes can be misinterpreted by investigators if they do not know what they should be looking for, or if they overlook things that are red flags, or if they just misinterpret, just plain misinterpret. I think that, like Perry Freeman told us, Cop Facts, my dear friend, we need to know what the motive for this crime is. And I don't think anybody has hit on it yet. I think that we're close. I think that some of us out there that are looking into this case and looking farther than just what's been on the surface for 5.5 years might possibly be looking closer to what a motive might be. I just know that we need to know what that motive is and what the motivation of this killer is. And I think if we were able to figure that out, that we would know a lot more about who he is. And I don't know. There's just so much out there. And when you're examining these cases and going over everything, it's kind of, I don't know, hard to imagine what these investigators saw when they came upon Abby and Libby's bodies. I will say that when I was first going through everything that happened and Delphi, and was going over the rumors that were out there about the crime scene and stuff, I've always gone back to what I've learned, not only from John Douglas, but from some of the other great profilers and people who talk about crime scenes and what we need to get from crime scenes. And we've all talked about this before. Who was the person who came upon the girls first? Who is the person who discovered them? Was that person ever alone with those bodies? Was that person someone who would have been so frightened by what they saw that they would have tried to change what was going on there? Because we just talked about the fact that John Douglas said that people who are close, who stage things, a lot of times are people who find the deceased. And in this case, it would have been traumatic for whoever that was in that search party. Would they have tried to cover them up? Would they have tried to do the things that we've been led to believe that may have been there? I guess one day we're going to find all of that out. We'll find out what's rumor and what's truth, and whether or not what we've been led to believe about the crime scene, if any of it's true, or if it's all just rumor and speculation and none of it's true. But if the killer was more violent with Libby, and Libby was the target, there has to be a reason why, and why that would be. If he tried to cover her up in some fashion, especially her head and upper body, to me that shows remorse. That's a person who feels remorse, and that's why they tend to do that. Or it's a person, like they said, who found them, who feels they don't want the family to realize that this is what happened to them, so they try to cover it or whatever, and then they end up staging the crime scene. Those are all possibilities. I don't know. None of us do, because none of us know what happened. when it comes to the crime scene. Law enforcement has told us nothing except what was in that Ron Logan affidavit about it being very, very bloody, which leads us to believe that there was probably a lot of damage done. And if not, then the damage that was done in a fashion that would make a lot of blood. So, I just think we can't deny the importance. Michelle tells us that that's why we have to be precise in what we do. One mistake can be the difference between conviction and acquittal. And that's exactly the truth. And it often makes me wonder what happened at that crime scene. Did they make mistakes in collecting the forensic evidence? Is there still forensic evidence at that crime scene that's never been discovered? Is there still forensic evidence in that creek? Is it possible that things were overlooked? I often wonder when I see those guys walking in the creek arm in arm, how are they searching the creek? Were they looking for bodies? Is that what they were trying to do, is step on a body or something? Because you never see them dipping their hands in the water or any of that. And I didn't understand what the heck, was going on there. And we just have to, we have to wonder. I've often wondered that. I know that, I think it was last fall or maybe it was earlier this year, Randy Gravitz said that they should go out and that huge pile of debris that's at the base of the bridge that's never been moved. It's been there the whole time since before the girls were killed. Maybe there's evidence that floated into there. So I don't know. Unsolved says she believes that Libby was targeted because of something in her family member's history, potentially as an extermination, and the fact that he covered her meant he was praying for her sin. Perhaps that is exactly what could be going on. I mean, it's hard to really know because we don't know exactly what condition this crime scene was. But we know a little bit more by going over John Douglas's article in how they're supposed to be looking and examining crime scenes and what goes into staging, what goes into signatures, and what MO or modus operandi means, and the fact that it's fluid, it's ever changing, and that they do change their MOs based upon how they learn to make their crimes better. And if this was not a first-time offender, and the more and more I think about this, I don't think this was this guy's first time doing something like this. I just don't. I just don't think that, hey, Melodramatic Monday, it's so good to you. I believe that. I do believe that the killer believes he is God. And I think that a lot of the things that we're finding unsolved regarding Flora and some of the other things that we found in the data truly points to that. And I think that that's one of the things that's going to be shocking. I think that that's one of the things that's going to shock everyone that when this case is finally solved. Couldn't think of the word. Digital, who are you talking about? Are you talking about Ron Logan? What do you mean by a setup? I'm just going to go back here and look at some of the comments that I missed. So just give me a moment here. Yeah, it's definitely Bridget, I agree with you so much about the fact that this happens way too often and these monsters need to be off the streets. Oh, Tamara, I'm so sorry. I hope you're okay. Oh, that's terrible. You probably need to be seen. If your neck hurts really bad, you probably should be seen at the prompt care or at the ER to rule out whiplash. I wouldn't wait too long on that either. I just hope you're okay. Um, enjoy your dinner, Michelle. So yeah, I think someone knows. I firmly believe that someone knows. I was listening to I think there's a lot of weird things that are happening around this case. There's just a lot of weird things. And I've been listening to a lot of other podcasters and other YouTubers on certain things that they're covering about the case. I always feel that it's good to listen to other ideas and what someone else might say. And I always like listening or looking at the chats of those to see what people are out there doing and saying. And there seems to be someone out there that did something really bizarre last night. I was listening to Sunny Justice's live stream, and one of her moderators, Adam, got multiple phone calls, you guys, while we were there on the live. And he got phone calls, and he showed us his phone as these calls were coming in from someone who was calling him from the Abby and Libby tip line. So somebody either spoofed the number or hacked the number or whatever, but they made it look as if they were calling him from that line. And then they were being really bizarre and crazy and just saying crazy stuff. I mean, it was crazy. I told him that he absolutely needed to call law enforcement and let them know that somebody was doing that, because that to me is just, that is so stepping over the line of insanity that I just couldn't even believe it was happening. And it wasn't just one time. He was getting multiple. My fan is blowing my hair into my eyes and I cannot get it off of my eyelashes. He was getting multiple calls. So yeah, it was weird. Yeah, Dave, you were there. You saw it. It was crazy. I couldn't believe it. And it just goes to show how many people around this case are weird. And, you know, who would do that? I don't know. But I just feel, I don't know. I just feel like there's something there, so to speak. I'm going to uh, do a drawing. Hold on a second while I get it set up here. Um, my giveaway that I like to do for you guys. Got to get that hair off my eyelash. It's driving me nuts. Oh my goodness. And so tonight for the drawing, I would like everybody to put hashtag empathy into the comment. So hashtag empathy. That's EMPATHY, capital E. I do think he's watching. I think he's watching. I was talking about it to someone earlier this afternoon. He agreed with me. He said that he also believes that somebody is watching and that all of us need to be diligent and be safe. Be safe out there, because you never know. These cases are unsolved, and we've got somebody out there that committed a double murder, and we've got somebody out there that is committing mass murder with the arsons. And if the cases are connected, this is bad. I mean, these are people not to be played with, or whatever. So we're drawing for a Abby and Libby bracelet tonight. I am going to get some other drawing things for you. One of the things that we're going to draw for starting next week is I will give away access to my private Facebook group. I'm going to give away, right now you have to be a member of Behind the Crime Door to get access to the Facebook group. And so that's one of the things that I will start giving away, is some access to that. Also some access to my private Discord. You also have to be a member to get access to that. And the Discord group is a place to meet after the live streams to talk about the cases. It's a way for you guys to talk to each other without having to be here at a live stream, so that you can discuss the cases and things like that. The one thing that I demand is the same rules that I demand here, that you guys all follow. Those rules all apply both in the Discord and in the Facebook group. So I will tell you that. I think that there's a lot of possibility that when the crime was committed, that there very well could be a non-secular something at the crime scene. That doesn't surprise me at all. There's so many different things that it could be. It's okay, Louisa. I may give away a membership or two as well. So don't worry, and don't stress whether you can or cannot. I understand why people can't. So it's not something that you have to stress about. I am going to start doing my members only live streams. However, I only need 3 more members. I set a goal for myself before I did it. I need 3 more members, and then I'll start doing members only content. So, and then we can grow from there on that. But I really appreciate all of you. I appreciate everyone who's here. I appreciate everyone who donates to me, whether it be by PayPal, whether it be by, the super chats. I've gotten super thanks, the super stickers, all of it. And oh, Louisa, that's terrible. I'm so, so sorry to hear about that. I hope that somebody is out there that's able to help you. That's terrible. I have my store now, so you guys are able to check out my merchandise. I don't know if PayPal is there. I don't know if that will come up or not. Unsolved, can you put up some of the prompts that I'm saying, please? That would be great. I don't remember what they all are. That obviously isn't one of them because I was going to send it out there. You guys can also buy me a tea, and that has worked out really well. I've been enjoying that very, very much. Hold on a second here. That is really weird. Huh. Why did that come up that way? Wow. That was weird. Okay, hold on a second. Thank you so much. So there's my, if you click on that link that my Nightbot dropped, you can buy me a tea. Everybody knows that I love tea. So those are some ways that you guys can support me and my channel. I appreciate all of you each and every day for being here and listening to me and watching. Please subscribe and like the video and make sure that you share it. If you feel compelled to, I try to share other people's work that I find important that we should be looking at, because I'm not one of those creators that's afraid to mention other creators. The creators that I support, I'm going to always talk about. I've heard so many things about certain creators, and I like to make my own judgments on people. And some of the things I've heard about other creators I've found to not be true. So I like to keep an open mind out there. But I will say that I'm a fact-based channel. You guys know that. And that's the way I'm going to always be about my case. Whenever I'm doing case coverage, I really, really want to be that person who sticks to the facts. I think it's very important. It's important for all cases that we try not to step too far into the world of crazy speculations, because it doesn't truly help them. And I did notice today, and I must have missed it. Has any of you guys watched the interview? It looks like Kelsey may have been back on Gray Hughes again. Did anybody happen to catch that? Talking about the trolling and how it doesn't help anyone. Has anybody seen that yet? Hey, John. Thank you so, so much. His name is Buddy. I love him. He is such a cutie. He's such a cutie. What kind of dog is he? I just love his face. He's just got this beautiful face. Is he a lab mix, or is he getting old, John? I'm a dog lover. I love cats too, but I love dogs. Lynn, thank you so, so much. You are amazing. I adore you. Thank you so, so much. Awesome. Awesome. He's a Beagle Lab mix, 11 years old. So he's gray on his face, right? That's him graying and becoming this distinguished older gentleman. I just love his face. He looks so happy. So it's the same, Bridget? It's not a different video? Because I saw that one where she was on with Caleb, but I didn't. I saw a different I saw a different thing today with him, and I thought that there was a new one out. So maybe that I am mistaken. But yeah. Good night, Louisa. You have a good evening. Thanks, Dave. I agree. Anybody who starts berating or shaming Kelsey or throwing her under the bus and saying that she has something to do with these horrific crimes, I'm not playing that game. I won't go there. Absolutely will not. And that's absolutely awesome. I'm so excited. So now I have to work on my first members video. She's gifted 5 members. So I'll have to work on that. That's awesome. And I don't understand where the whole thinking lies with the whole mess with Kelsey, but it's definitely out there. We know it's there. It really caused her mental anguish this year before her wedding, which breaks my heart. She was just a teenager, a young girl when this happened, and she is not to blame for her sister's death. They were like best friends, and it is just yeah. I just don't know. I don't think I'll ever understand a lot of what makes people do the things they do on social media. But anyway, so you guys, I'm gonna sign off. I'm really glad that we got this time together today. I hope everyone has a good rest of their weekend. I will see you on Saturday night. I'm going to do an update of cases night. So that will be an update for a lot of the cases. I hope you all have a good weekend and that you're able to come. And I look so forward to talking with all of you then. Yeah, I guess the only thing I can say regarding the people that choose to make that kind of content is that if we don't really give them a voice and give them a platform and we don't support it, it should go away. So I feel like I'm on the right side of that, and I'm not going to, talk about them. I won't ever talk about their channel names or who they are. They know who they are. And oh yeah, wait a minute. I can't leave yet. I haven't drawn. Thank you so much, Pam, for keeping me honest. Does anybody else need to draw? If you do, put in hashtag empathy with a capital E, EMPATHY. If not, I'm going to drop, or I'm going to draw. Thank you guys for helping me remember. Here we go. Oh my goodness, I'm so excited. I bet she's not here anymore. Hold on a minute. Let me share my screen. AJ, you won. Since she may not be here, I'm going to go ahead and if you guys want me to, I'm going to draw again. So just a minute. Let me see if she answers. AJ, are you still out there? You want an Abby and Libby bracelet. If you send me your address by email, my dear, I will send it to you. I am so excited for you. Just email me your address and I'll get it mailed over to you, okay? It might take a little while, but it'll get to you. And I'm excited that you'll have one of those bracelets down under. So excited. Awesome, AJ. That's great. Okay, you guys, I'm going to do another drawing. So give me a minute, okay? I got to take this down while I draw. Remember why I told you I had to do that? Because there's people out there with naked photos on their stupid pictures. So we don't want YouTube getting me banned, right? Okay, here we go. Here's our next winner. Oh, it's taking forever. Oh my goodness. Everybody is going to think this is rigged. Hold on a second. It's not rigged, honestly, you guys. This is a real drawing. Unsolved crimes uncovered. Allie, I will get that sent out to you. Just email me your address, honey, and I'll get that sent out to you. So yeah, there you guys go. So don't worry. We'll have more drawings. I'll have another drawing on Saturday night. And I do know that feeling where everybody says, oh yeah, the GoFundMe for Flora is at $605, you guys. So just so you know, it's come up a lot. I'm really proud of that people are actually giving. You do deserve it. Oh, to Tamara? Tamara? Sure, I can give it to Tamara. Tamara, will you send me email? Just email me. You guys drop my email. Hold on, I'll do it. Just email me your address, you guys, and I'll get those sent out to you right away. And again, I hope everybody has a good night. Love to you all. And remember, behind the crime door, nothing is ever as it seems. You guys have a good night. Thank you so much.